I'm going to be sharing with you in this video 5 ways to speed up what you want to create in your life. And I'm not going to say in this video that if you apply these concepts that it's guaranteed that you're going to be able to create what you want to see happen in your life. I'm not going to stand here and say that to you, but what I will say is that I do believe that if you apply the concepts that I'm going to be sharing with you in this video, there's a very high probability that you're going to be able to see what you want happen in your life. And there's a much higher chance that you will actually see these things happen in your life. So the first thing that I want to share with you in this video, in terms of the first way to speed up, so to speak, what you want to create in your life. And really, it's going to sound so obvious. It's going to sound so simple. But I think that most people know that this is the answer. But the truth is that they just don't really want to hear it. Now, the first thing is really simple, but it's long-term consistency. That's all it really is. It's just long-term consistency. And nobody wants to hear that, right? Everybody wants the fancy answer that sounds really nice on paper, where it's like there's the bunnies and there's the roses and there's the birds chirping, in the trees, and everything is good. It's like, honestly, if you want to speed up what you want, ironically, just stay consistent in the long term. Just be consistent every single day. Be determined, know that you're going to be able to create it, and just trust that it's going to happen. Like, you have to have a knowing almost that it's going to happen, and that, in that long-term consistency, you're going to create it. You just have to have a knowing. You have to have a trust. And really, I think that, even though it's ironic, even though it might seem paradoxical, that if you want to create something in the fastest way possible and speed it up, you have to let go of instant gratification and wanting it to speed up at all. Because the truth is that, that's not how life works. Life doesn't just work where, the ego wants something. It's like, me, I want it, it's going to happen today. Like, that's not how it works. Like, it takes some time to flower, your desires. A flower and tree can't just grow in just one day. That's not how it works. If you want to speed up that process, you have to nurture it consistently every single day. You can't just speed it up. And if you try to speed it up, there's most likely going to be complications, or you increase the probability of there being major complications in that process. And so we don't want this. We want it to be as simple as possible. And for me, the most simple and effective way possible to really speed up anything in your life is just to have a long-term approach. Just stop trying to make it happen overnight. Stop trying for it to happen in the fastest way possible, and think about it in the long term. And then, funny enough, you're going to achieve what you want in the fastest way possible much faster than other people that are trying to attain it overnight and believe that things can happen in just one day. Like, I'm not saying that overnight success can't happen. I'm going to share a point later in this video in terms of why I believe that actually overnight success is completely possible. But it's not what people think, Overnight success is not what people think. But the point here is that long-term consistency is going to bring you what you want in a much faster way. I strongly believe that. I strongly believe that if you're just consistent in the long term, what you want is going to happen in the fastest way possible for you. Now, the second thing that I want to share with you in this video, in terms of if you really want something to speed up in your life, if you really want to see this happen, then what I would invite and encourage you to do is just to detach from speeding it up completely. Just detach. Just let it all go. Because the truth is that you don't really need to be attached for how fast it happens in order for it to happen in the fastest way possible. In fact, the more attached you are, the longer it's going to take. So I invite and encourage you, if you're attached for it to happen as fast as possible, just let that go completely. Detach from that idea that you need to speed it up. Because this idea that you need to speed it up and for it to happen faster is not allowing you to be efficient. Sometimes it's not really about speed, it's about efficiency, that's all it really is. It's about being efficient and consistent. Consistency and structure and efficiency and discipline all have sort of this similar common theme, which is just that you need to take action and stay in a flow of movement. And do that on a consistent basis. I don't want to use the word to create the definition of the word, but you want to do it every single day almost, or as much as possible. It doesn't have to be every single day necessarily, but if you're doing that long-term approach and then you're not attached for it to happen in any type of speed, now, again, paradoxically, you have a recipe for it to happen in the fastest way that it can happen. However fast it can happen, you doing what you're doing in that way is going to allow for the highest probability for it to happen in the fastest way possible. That's all it really is. If you want something to happen in the fastest way possible, just let go of it happening in some sort of time. And you might be thinking, well, what about deadlines? Well, for deadlines, it's interesting because yes, if you want to create something by a deadline, that's completely fine. But what I would invite and encourage you to do is to try your best while you're trying to meet this deadline to, be aware of the clock. For sure, be aware of the clock, but don't get too attached to the clock. Because if you're too attached to the clock, now you're so focused on time, it's like you're losing mental energy to just be taking action to meet the deadline. So it's like if you just kind of let go of the deadline a little bit, I'm not saying you forget about it completely, because if you do that, maybe you'll lose track of time, and that's a problem, right? You don't want to just lose track of time completely, and then now you can't really be the person that you want to be. Like, that's an issue, right? You're losing track of time and you can't meet a deadline, that's a problem. But what I'm saying is that try your best just to let go of time while you're trying to meet that deadline. You'll see that this is going to make you work faster. Whatever deadlines you want to meet in your life, let go of them completely as much as possible while staying aware of them to some degree, but don't be attached to them as much as possible. What you'll find is that you finish your work a lot faster. Like, all the things that you want to create, everything that you want to see happen is just going to happen in a much faster way, much faster way, when you detach from it happening in a particular speed completely. And it's very ironic and it doesn't really make sense, but when you're in the flow of action, it does kind of make sense, because you see that you're not using any mental capacity to be worried about it not happening. You're just fully taking action. It's like you almost become this powerhouse of action where you kind of just know, like, yeah, this is going to happen. It's like at this point, you have so much momentum, you have so much consistency. It's almost like, yes, you do have confidence that it's going to happen because you're taking that action. You're attached to time to some degree because you're a human and you're going to be confined by time to some degree, but at the same time, you're detached from it completely. That, I think, is a recipe to create something very powerful and to really be the person that you actually want to be versus what other people are deciding for you that you need to be, right? It's like people are saying that you can meet this deadline. Yes, you can meet that deadline, but you're going to be detached from it completely. I think that's very powerful stuff. Now, the third thing that I want to share with you in this video is just to understand that, people think that overnight success happens overnight. And I want to talk about this, in this video really quick, which is that overnight success, doesn't happen overnight. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Any overnight success that you've ever seen happen in your life, whether it was some type of person or a situation, or you saw like an overnight success happen, let me just get something straight. I want you to look and analyze this person's behaviors, analyze how they're acting, analyze that, what their life looks like, and just really take a look at, like, what are their actions before that success? What were they doing before that success? And if you look at it, almost always, almost every single time, what you'll find in that situation is that there's always some element of just consistent action for a long period of time, way before that quote unquote overnight success actually happened, right? There was a lot of action, and most people are going to overlook that action and think like, oh, this person's lucky. Right now, I'm going to tell you, luck doesn't exist. Luck is nothing more than just preparedness plus opportunity. That's it. That's just what luck is. If you're prepared enough for an opportunity, you're going to be a lucky person. People are going to look at you and think, well, why is this person so lucky? Well, he's not really lucky. He's just prepared for every single opportunity that comes in his life. And you might be thinking, well, maybe he's attracting more opportunities. He's lucky in that sense. Well, let me break another myth for you right now. There's always opportunities, and there's no lack of opportunities in your life. There's never been a lack of opportunities. If you don't see opportunities in your life, I'm sorry to tell you, you're not looking out for them. You're not preparing yourself to see them, to be aware of them. There's always been yellow cars on the road, but you're not noticing them. You're not paying attention to them. They're always there. How many yellow cars did you see today? None. because you weren't looking for them. And you think they don't exist though? Of course they exist. Of course yellow cars exist. And in the same way, your opportunities for every single goal you've ever wanted also exists. So don't tell me that there's no yellow cars on the road, and don't tell me that there's not opportunities for your desire, because that's not true. That is not the case. So, I really want to dispel this myth where overnight success is just lucky. Overnight success is not lucky. It's that somebody took consistent action for usually multiple years before seeing success or the result that they wanted. Success, I believe, is action towards the intention. If you do that, you're successful. I'm sorry to say you're successful. But if you care about a result and you are a person of high achievement and you want to base your level of success not just on your action taking, but on the results that you're getting, well, analyze a person that has already created it and look at what they did. Almost always you'll find that they just take consistent action for multiple years, usually 10 years, and they're on a road to high level mastery. To become a master, they're putting in not even 10,000 hours. Usually they're putting in 100,000 hours into their craft and what they love to do. And you think that's lucky? You think that it's lucky that that person created success? And that's not lucky. I'm sorry to tell you. That's determination, which leads me to the fourth point in this video, which is that if you want to speed up what you want to create in your life, what I would invite and encourage you to do is to have 100% determination. 100% determination. I think that's what's necessary to speed up what you want. Because if you're 100% determined and you know that these overnight successes didn't happen overnight and it didn't happen in just one day, it was consistency, you have to be determined. You have to almost know that you're going to be able to create it. And I'm not saying that you have so much pride and so much ego to the point where it's like, you think that it's inevitable that it's going to happen. Like anything can happen. I think that, we can't have so much ego where we think that we're in control of life. I think it is important to remember that, you need to be humble enough to remember that everything can be taken away from you in an instant and that there's nothing that's truly granted in life. Don't take anything for granted, right? Be grateful for what you have and understand that anything can be taken away from you at any moment. So with this being said, have this level of non-attachment where you see that you own nothing. You don't own your house, truthfully speaking. Yeah, you might have a mortgage on your house. But truthfully, you don't own your house. You don't own anything. There's nothing that you own in life. I'm going to make a bold claim here. You don't even own your body. You don't even own your own thoughts, really. You don't own anything. There's nothing in life. Notice there's nothing in life that you can truly grasp onto. There's no grasping of anything. There's nothing you can grasp onto, and that everything is temporary. Everything is temporary in life. But from this perspective of humbleness and not having so much ego and pride, I want you to walk through life and try your best to see your desire as inevitably going to happen. You want to walk through your life with a certain level of determination that what you want is inevitable. It can't not happen because you're going to take so much action to the point where you make it impossible almost for it not to happen. Somebody tells you that it's impossible, you think in your mind, impossible and impossible is based on how willing you are to challenge the past beliefs. That's all it really is. If you want to make something that's impossible possible, what's going to be the differentiating factor between the person that creates that and the person that doesn't create that is quite simply a belief in something greater. That's all it really is. That's all it really comes down to, is just a belief in something greater. A belief in something that hasn't happened yet, but you know that it can happen if you put in enough focus and energy and determination and belief and momentum into it. And so determination, I think, is very powerful because if you want to speed up anything, know that it's going to happen almost. Just know. Be consistent. Be persistent. Don't be rude or disrespectful or dishonorable towards life. Don't do that. Don't be rude or disrespectful or dishonorable, but be determined. Understand that at the end of the day, there's nobody that you can control. There's nothing on the outside that you can really manipulate. All you can really control is your belief, your actions, your intentions, and how you see the world. Stop trying to control other people. There's no reason to control the outside. All you really need to control is how determined you are. What's your current belief? How can you increase your level of determination towards the thing that you want to see happen in your life? I think that that's what it really means to speed up what you want to create, is to be so determined that you see no option of failure. There's just, you can't fail. Like, you just can't fail. There's no possibility of you failing. Like, you want to be so determined that it's like you just literally can't fail. Failure just means that you focus again in life. You focus again on something else. You focus on another thing that you care about. That's all determination really is. It's just refocusing on something else. Every single time you believe that you fail, realize that you can't fail and that you just need to refocus. Be so determined that you see failure as not an option in your life. Combine that, of course, with non-attachment. Don't be attached to your ego. Your ego is not something you can attach to because you own nothing. But remember to be determined. Don't let your non-attachment be such a high level of detachment where now you're disrespecting your own desires and your own goals, because that's not fair to you either, right? You can't just pretend that you're detached but you don't want stuff, but you really do. That's not fair to you, right? That's not fair to what you want to create. So if you want to speed up this process, be determined. Be determined. Know that it's going to happen, right? Combine that with long-term consistency, detachment from, it happening at a certain speed, and understand that it can happen overnight, but just be consistent, be determined. You're going to be powerful. It's going to be pretty improbable for it not to happen. And that's a double negative, so it's probably going to happen, right? There's a very high probability that it will happen if you come from this level of determination, combining that with a level of non-attachment and detachment from how it's going to happen. And so you can't really fail, which leads me to the fifth point in this video, which is just to remember that you can't really fail unless you stop taking action. Like, if you stop taking action, then you fail. That's really what I want to conclude this video with and make very clear. If you want to speed up what you want to create, understand that failure does not exist in your world. It doesn't exist. The only way that failure can actually happen is if you go against your word. That's technically a failure. But really, even in that case, you can't really fail, because to really fail would be to not bounce back and forgive yourself for going against your word. That's failure right there. If you fail and you can't forgive yourself and say, you know what, this is normal and I'm going to realign myself and retake action towards the goal instead because I don't want to be attached to this. If you can't do that, then yes, you failed. If you choose to stop moving forward, that's a failure. But if you realize that you can't stop actually moving forward, and the only reason that you could fail is if you choose to stop moving forward. When I say you can't, you can, but you don't want to. You realize it's no choice for you. You have to move forward, because what's the alternative, which is true failure. And you realize that true failure is just not taking action. And if you're in that space, well, you're going to speed up what you want to create. I'm trying to tell you. And just remember that, it's going to help you to get what you want probably in a much faster way. Because remember, if you see that failure is not an option, think about how consistent you're going to be compared to the other person. You're going to be so much more consistent, because that other person thinks that when something doesn't go right, or that they accidentally make a mistake, or their patterns come up, they think that they're failing and then they stop. That's a difference between, but then the other person, the past emotions come up, right? The negative beliefs, the doubt, the anxiety, and then the fear, and then, or maybe they want to stop taking action for whatever reason, and then they stop taking action, right? That's the failure person. But the person that doesn't fail, they take action even when all that stuff comes up. When all that stuff comes up, all these things I just listed, they still take action anyway. They still do it. They still continue. They still don't really see it as a reason to not take action. And I think that's very powerful, because now what you're doing is that no matter what external stuff happens in your life, no matter what external stimulus are popping up in your experience, you say that, you know what, I'm still going to take action anyways, because it's like there's no alternative for me. The alternative is true failure, which is a decision to stop. That's failure. And I want to make that clear. That's a decision. That's a decision to stop. Don't choose to stop taking action towards your goal. If you do that, then you fail. If you stop that mentality and you take action, no matter what emotions are coming up, not saying that you don't trust your feelings and that if you need a rest day to take a rest, that's not what I'm saying. To not take rest, of course, Like if you feel negative emotions coming up and you need to take a rest day for a little bit, then go ahead and do that. But forgive yourself. Realize that if you stop taking action from that point, then you're a failure. But if you recharge yourself and you go back and take action, that's not a failure. That's pure success right there. That's you detaching yourself from your anxiety, recharging yourself, and then taking action when you're ready. That's a pure success right there. But I'm just saying, stop believing in the fear. Don't let the fear dictate your actions. And remember, this is a long-term goal. This is about every single day action. This is about consistent action every single day. If you miss 1 day, 2 days here, like you need a rest day, like none of that is going to affect your vision in the long term. None of that is going to affect who you want to be in the bigger picture. Create a vision for yourself in the bigger picture. Bigger picture thinking is very powerful stuff, because now what you're doing is that you're seeing that it doesn't have to happen today or tomorrow or next week or even in 2 months. It's like, how can I create a 5 to 10 year plan for myself to create what I want to create? That's what I think is really powerful, because now what you're doing is that if you start to think like this, I really believe that that's going to be the recipe to create things faster. Stop believing that you can fail. Just keep taking action, no matter what emotions are coming up. And remember, it's normal to feel anxiety. Like when an emotion of the past comes up, as you're moving forward towards the future, that's completely normal. That's so normal. I think that people need to forget that that's normal. That's a normal part of the process, and that you don't need to be worried about negative emotions. Like, that's just emotions. Like, it doesn't have to define your identity. What does an emotion or a past thought, replaying of something that's based on the past, have anything to do with who you're moving forward to be in the future? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And if you want to move towards something in the future, think about who you want to be as if you already had that reality right now in this present moment, and then start to take action towards that every single day. And then remember, as you hold this intention in your mind, if you stop taking action towards that intention and you believe that, you stop believing that that intention is possible, and you do something else that you don't really want to do, that's failure. That's a failure right there. Now, you might learn a lesson in that situation, and it might not be a true failure in the bigger picture, but really, if you understand that your intentions will happen if you give them time, if you give them commitment and nourishment, just like a flower, it's going to happen. That's going to be success. If you realize that success is simply taking action towards your goal every single day, what you want is going to speed up. It's going to happen in a much faster way, and you're going to see that you no longer depend on the external world to actually feel validated and to feel connected to who you